Okay, that works. Okay, this week we're going to be looking at government and market failure, and this is also more commonly known, and what you're going to see this as positive and negative externalities. Okay, and Nick is kind enough to record this for us, and you guys are watching on YouTube. All right, so as far as public goods, there's two things you want to think about: rivalry and excludability. And actually, it works better if I explain it to you as a private good first, okay? So, Beth, do you like ice cream? Okay, excellent. And when you go for an ice cream cone in the summer, where do you go? Baskin-Robbins, perfect, okay? So, I want you to imagine that you get your favorite flavor. What flavor do you usually get? Cookie dough? Okay, very good. And you go up there and you say, get your cookie dough. Take one lick, and then you turn to the guy or the girl behind you and say, would you like to buy it? Okay? Yeah, that's not going to work, is it? Now, why not? They want their own ice cream. And ice cream is a good that is rival. It's a private good. Okay? So once you've licked it, generally speaking, no one else wants to have a lick of it. Okay? The second thing, if we go back a step, Zing, imagine that she went up to the counter and she said, empty pockets, just like the Monopoly guy. Okay, I don't have any money. I'll get you back on Tuesday. Are they going to let that purchase go through? No. No, they're not. Okay, and that's your excludability. So private goods are both rival and excludable. Okay, meaning that if one person uses it, it impairs someone else's ability to use it. And the second thing is, if you don't have money, in this case, you can be excluded from using that. Good. Public goods, on the other hand, are non-rival and non-exclusive. So, Nick, thinking about that, non-rival would mean what?
Not like you can use it and it doesn't affect it.
Correct. If you use it, then Beth and Zane can still use it, and it doesn't affect the performance or enjoyment of it. And then excludable, Zane, would be what? Or excuse me, non-excludable.
It would affect it?
No. Beth?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
Non-excludable means?
I guess that would mean that you don't necessarily have to have the money in your pocket.
Well, yeah, you don't have to pay for it. You can't be kept out. What's an example of a public good?
Medicare?
Well, Medicare is something, let's see.
Or like a park?
Yeah, a park would be getting more along those lines, okay? Think about 4th of July, though. That's the one I want you to think about.
Fireworks?
Yeah, fireworks, okay? So let's think about fireworks. Particularly downtown in Inner Harbor. They throw them up. How many people would you say go? 500,000, 1 million?
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, it's quite a few. If you can see them for miles around. So you have a situation there where they're non-rival. If you're enjoying them, doesn't mean everybody else can enjoy them. You just get a picnic blanket and sit right next to them. The second thing is they don't charge for those fireworks. Saying, why don't they charge you to go see the fireworks downtown?
Because the government is setting up the show and you're paying with your tax money.
Sure, that's how it's paid for. And would you pay if they charge it?
Not really.
Not really, because you can sit outside the fence and watch the exact same show, right? Or you can just go one block down, right? Not bother to get into the fireworks, okay? So that's a little bit about the difference between private and public goods. We'll talk more about that later. And then as far as demand for a public good, what they're showing you here is revealed preferences, meaning what they're willing to pay. And if you see that for a quantity of 1, Adam is willing to pay 4, Benson's willing to pay 5, then society, assuming it's only 2 people, is willing to pay $9 for one of these goods. And then you can do it all the way down. You can see they do it all the way through 5. And much like a regular demand curve, as you increase the amount, the collective willingness to pay goes down. Now, the thing with this, though, is if you're talking about people's preferences for public goods, there's a big difference between what they would answer in a survey and what they'd actually be willing to pay for. For instance, if I said, amongst you 3, I'm going to pass the hat This is for national defense, okay? Now, if I asked you in a survey, how much do you think we should spend per capita? You might say $30, you might say 50, you might say 10, etc. Now, the second part of that exercise, passing the hat, how much do you think you'd give me? You think you'd give me 30? No? Nick, 50? Beth, 10? No, probably not. So the problem is that with public goods, people always want more than they're willing to pay for, okay? And that's something that government has to struggle with. All right, and then you can see their optimal amount of public good. Again, their willingness to pay, you're adding them together. And if you add D1 and D2 together, then you get your willingness to pay for society. That's your DC curve there. Go ahead.
Does it generally make it more inelastic? I just noticed it was more.
No, I mean, it just depends on what their preferences are at the different ones, okay? And then the marginal cost is shown by your supply curve, as you can see here, okay? Now, as you've heard before, marginal benefit equals marginal cost. So this is the socially optimal amount, socially optimal. Now, if we say that 3 is a socially optimal, Beth, what if we produce 2 of that particular good? Are we under or over allocated? We are under allocated. And you can see, if you look at the chart, that right here, this is my marginal benefit at 2. This is my marginal cost. So if my benefit is 7 and my cost is only 3, and we're still getting +4 on that. So we definitely want more of those goods. Zing, on the other hand, if we go to 4 goods, we just say that we are under or over allocated.
Over allocated.
Good, because here you have your cost of 7, and then your benefit is only 3, so that's a -4. So therefore, we should produce less in that situation. Okay, then to explain externalities to you, Nick, I want you to imagine that you guys put up a nice fireworks display for the Ravens, you know, all kinds of explosions, good stuff going on. It's the AFC Championship game. They just won. They beat the Patriots. Tom Brady went out with a broken leg. Everybody's going crazy, okay? And they're going to the Super Bowl. They're heavy favorites to win. So to celebrate, you and your crew go out to, I don't know, Shula's Steakhouse, one of the big steakhouses downtown. And everybody's so pumped up. You're going to get big steaks, you know, and enjoy eating with your friends. Now, everything's going well, except, lo and behold, right down next to you, next table over, come 4 Yankee fans, okay? And not only are they loud, like most New Yorkers, okay? So you have to hear every single word they're talking about in their whole conversation. They're also smoking big old cigars. And we'll just imagine this is the pre-no smoking days, okay? People used to be able to smoke in restaurants. So, all of a sudden, your great night has turned into what? Not so good, right?
Yeah.
And this is what we're talking about with spillover costs, as we'll refer to them as negative externalities. You're suffering from a couple different things acted on you by a third party, okay? So you have these guys here that are smoking, talking real loudly, and so you're getting 2 types of pollution, noise pollution and then the air pollution for the breathing the air, okay? So you're unrelated third party, but you are suffering because of what they're doing. So that's an example of a negative externality. As far as a positive externality or spillover benefits, what you're looking at there are some things like, I always talk about education, okay? Whereas if people get education, generally, society benefits from that because they come up with new inventions, they come up with ways to improve how the government works, et cetera, et cetera. Another one that they use is inoculations. If, for instance, you guys are all inoculated for TB, how do I benefit from that? I don't get TB, right? That's generally not something I'm looking to pick up. So that's an example of spillover benefits or positive externalities. Okay. Now, what's your show? Go ahead. Questions?
Oh no, I was just, oh my gosh, what's that?
Yeah, let me close the door here. So we're going to do something a little bit different with the graph, but for right now, I'm just going to show you this. So this is your spillover costs. So what you have initially is a supply curve, a demand curve, And then this is your equilibrium quantity, equilibrium price. Okay, so the red line is the first line. And then the second one is optimal quantity for society and optimal price. So if we were to go from the initial S and D to the ST and D, what would we have to do? Would we have to tax or would we have to subsidize this good? Do we have to tax or subsidize it? What do you think, Zig?
Well, since you have to produce less of that good, I think you have to tax it.
Correct, you tax it. And two good things would happen from society's standpoint. Okay? As you said, you're going to produce less of the good, okay? And you're also going to charge a higher price. This is also comes in handy if you're thinking about things like coal plants, or what if you're manufacturing automobiles? Because automobiles spew a lot of carbon, etc., into the air. That's something that we want the people responsible, meaning the companies and the people buying gasoline, to pay for. So we move the supply curve to the left, higher price, lower output. Now, if we don't tax automobiles and we don't tax gasoline, what do you get? What do you get? An over or under allocation?
If you don't tax, then over allocation.
Yeah, you get the over allocation, and you can see that right at your quantity of equilibrium. So without that, it's over allocated to the people. Okay. And then this is spillover benefits. Again, you're going to want to know these as positive externalities. So if we think about things like education or inoculations, anything like that, you have a situation where you want to move from D to DT, okay? And again, this is with, if you're on the demand curve, Beth, are you talking about the supplier or the consumer? The consumer, very good.
Yeah, can I talk to you if line 0 because I'm recording this right now.
Okay, so that's what you have there. And to get from, you said consumer, correct? Okay, so to get from D to DT, what will we do, Zing? Will we tax or subsidize? We would subsidize, okay? And again, you're going to subsidize the consumer, and you're going to get a greater output of that particular good, okay? So we'll leave that at that. Oh, and if you don't, then, Nick, do you get an under or over allocation of the good?
Under.
You get an under allocation. Very good. Okay. Now, there is one thing you should be familiar with. It's called the Coase theorem. You want like the Nobel Prize for doing this, but it's a lot more complicated than we're going to go into here in class. But I want you to imagine, do we have any environmentalists in here? Zing, you're an AP Bio. Would you say you're an environmentalist?
Sort of.
Sort of, okay. We'll say you're a full-fledged environmentalist. And you love nature so much that out in Western Maryland, you create Camp Tree Bark, okay? And at Camp Tree Bark, what people do is they pay for a week and they live in cabins and they go out and commune with nature and hug the trees and, wear Birkenstock sandals, etc., eat lots of granola, that kind of thing. So life is good, it's very rustic out there and, lots of animals, and, your campers are very happy. Well, there has to be a bad guy in every good story, right? So Nick happens to be a lumber baron, okay? And as it so happens, he owns the 500 acres right next to Camp Tree Bark. Now, being a lumber baron, again, he's looking to maximize his profits. So the price of timber happens to be high. And he, the word's out on the street that he is going to start clear cutting his forests and sell the wood to some wood manufacturer, make lots of 2x4s, etc., to build houses and things of that nature. Now, you have a problem, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so you go sit down with Nick at the local diner, and you try and make a proposal because it's going to be sad times. There's going to be lots of tears at Camp Tree Bark if all these campers come and see clear-cut forests, right?
Yeah.
So what kind of proposal do you make him? What could help you and what could help him?
Well, he wants money, so
wants money.
obviously I have to give him money to
Exactly.
hold him back from cutting down the forest.
Excellent, okay. So that's basically the idea. If you have a couple of things. one, a small number of parties, okay, in this case two. Second thing, you have clear ownership of property rights, which you do. You know, it's his lumber, or those are his trees. He may cut them down or leave them stand, either way. Okay, and then the third thing is if you have small operating costs or small transaction costs. If two of you guys sit down and hammer something out on a piece of paper and then get a lawyer to rubber stamp it, you're fine. So what you might be able to do is say, Nick, you know, I'm making some good money at my camp. It's pretty much worthless if you clear cut the forest, so I'll give you $25,000 a year just not to cut down the trees. And your sales pitch is one, you give him $25,000. Two, if he wants to cut them down next year, that's fine, right? You know, you worry about that next year. You meet him at the diner and see how much it's going to take next year to, you know, keep him to have the trees stand up. So does that make sense? So both parties win. You still get to have your camp, he keeps the lumber, plus he gets essentially a fee for not cutting down the forest. All right, that's the Coase theorem. As far as other things here, how do you minimize negative externalities or maximize positive externalities? Well, there's liability rules and lawsuits. So, for instance, if you have a company that's dumping sludge into the Chesapeake Bay and they get caught, well, then they go, you know, to civil court, definitely, and probably criminal court, and see if they can lock up some of the perpetrators there. And then next thing, you can have government put specific taxes on it, like carbon, or you can have them subsidize things that they want. For instance, if you think about the Prius or any of those types of electric or I don't know what you call them, hybrid cars, then you know people are going to buy more of them. Everybody goes home happy. Okay, so again, this is showing you the same thing. Now, if you have a situation where you tax it, okay, the reason that the tax is such a good thing, as we said, again, we've already gone over this, but this is your initial quantity equilibrium. Once you've taxed it, now it's no longer over-allocated if you tax it at the proper amount. So now you have the optimal quantity for society and the optimal price. And again, you are still going to have pollution, but you're going to have a lot less of that good produced, and the people that are buying it are then paying for the pollution. And then spillover benefits, again, you've seen this before, but with those subsidies, you go from under-allocating those goods at Q of E to Q of 0, where you have the optimal quantity. And that's why when you guys you know, go to college next year, part of that is going to be subsidized if you're taking out loans. Those loans are below market, okay, so the government subsidizes it that way. When you go to graduate school, as some of you will, the government throws a lot of research dollars, particularly at the big state universities, and part of that is so that they can hire you all, and you can go to school, graduate school, for free as a lab assistant or teaching, you know, 1 or 2 undergraduate courses. So that's what they're looking to do there, and get more people into the you know, system, so to speak. All right, and again, we already talked about with Beth. This is a demand curve, so we're dealing with consumers. Okay. Now, this is seen much less. It's potentially you could see it, but the other thing you could do is you could subsidize your producers. Okay, and if you subsidize the producers, supply curve would increase. Okay. The nice thing about this, as compared to subsidizing the consumers, is what happens to price in this one. Beth, what are we doing to price? Bringing it down. Versus the problem with subsidizing consumers, what's happened to the cost of higher education? It's going up. Okay, so they have a lot of ways to help you all afford it, particularly with the, you know, subsidized loans and the grants, etc. But one of the things that's done is drive the cost through the roof. So while they're trying to do a good thing, the end result has been that college education is enormously expensive. So you can subsidize the producer, and then you're going to get more supply and a lower price. And then again, you correct the under allocation. Now you go to Q of O, which is quantity optimal. All right. A couple things here. The first one is tragedy of the commons. So common goods are things, it originally comes from the English small towns, English villages. They would have a common in the middle. And it was common as well to raise sheep back then. So the sheep would graze on the grass in the middle of the town. The problem was that if you have a common area Whose interest is it to see that the sheep don't eat too much of the grass? Really nobody's or everybody's, okay? So what would happen is that the sheep would overgraze and they would essentially eat the grass down to the dirt. So you had the tragedy of the commons. And how it applies currently is if you think about the deep sea fisheries, or if you think about animals like the rhino or the, say the elephant that are being killed for certain reasons, people are overusing these and they're killing them off because nobody owns them. Okay, the deep sea fisheries are overfished. Who owns the fish? I don't know. Neptune owns the fish. I'm not sure. So in any case, you have that going on there. Now, the Europeans have implemented something like this where they have a fixed amount of pollution rights. And you can see the supply curve is perfectly inelastic here, and then you have a downsloping demand curve. And the Europeans put this in to try and make manufacturers pay for how much pollution that they would be emitting into the air. And you can see that if you had an increase in demand for these rights, then the cost of polluting would go up. So the hope is that people would buy these rights, and then because you have to pay to pollute, they would find other ways to manufacture that they'd throw less soot and CO2, etc., into the atmosphere. And therefore the price would then come down. And then you could also have people sell these off and perhaps make a profit. The problem that the Europeans had was that they issued too many of them. So if you issue too many of them, what happens to the price, Nick?
It just goes really high.
Well, think about if you issue too many, meaning the supply is way too far to the right. What's going to happen to the price?
Oh, go down.
Yeah, it's going to be very small, and that's what the Europeans did. Because they didn't want to cripple their manufacturers. So they kind of wanted to have it both ways. All right. And then as far as that goes, again, you want to produce where marginal cost equals marginal benefit. If marginal benefit is greater than marginal costing, do we have an under or over allocation? If marginal benefit is greater than marginal cost.
And we have under allocation,
Good, and therefore society should produce more or less?
they should produce more.
More, very good. Okay, Beth, on the other hand, if you have a situation where marginal cost is greater than marginal benefit, marginal cost is greater than marginal benefit, do you have an under or over allocation? You have an over allocation. Society should produce less. Very good. All right. And then this is talking about pollution abatement. Pollution abatement means to stop. So you can think about things that the type of screens that they put in the smokestacks and things of that nature, filters, et cetera, et cetera. So this is what your ideal would be. All right, and then they do different things. We're not going to talk too much about the recycling, global warming. A couple things here. Moral hazard and adverse selection. They're fairly interesting. So with moral hazard, you have the problem of this. Once you have somebody that has purchased something, okay, for instance, car insurance, or for that matter, health insurance, once you have the insurance, okay, what's the incentive to drive well? Let's say, for instance, Nick, you go out and you buy say a 2010 car, you drive it for a year or so, and you get tired of it. Right? Well, one thing you can do is sell it, okay? But maybe you won't get the price that you want. What else could you do to get a new car?
Just wreck it.
Wreck it, okay? Or you could, park it somewhere, near the Ravens game or something. Leave the keys in it, and see if somebody will steal it. Okay? So one of those ways, you could try and get rid of it. So that's the problem that insurers have: moral hazard. If you don't have a little check on their actions. Second thing is adverse selection, and this you're seeing a little bit with Obamacare. So you have a new health insurance system that's coming into play, and has the potential to help a lot of people. The problem is that initially the website's been a little faulty. So the people that are trying to sign up for insurance are having trouble getting through it. So if it takes you, say, 10 times to sign up for, register and then get your policy, who's more likely to sign up, say, a 22-year-old in perfect health or a 62-year-old grandmother?
62-year-old
Right.
grandmother.
and why will the 62-year-old grandmother persist, whereas the 22-year-old might give up and go play frisbee outside?
Because the 20-year-old doesn't have that urgency of a need than the
Right.
grandmother.
Right. So that's the key thing to getting Obamacare on its feet, is making sure that that website works, so that the people that are interested but not really interested, meaning people in their 20s and 30s that are healthy, they have the opportunity to buy this insurance, and they can do it without a whole lot of aggravation. If it takes them too much time, then they're going to probably not buy. All right. And you can